can still achieve all that even without protocols. So let's take a look at that.
Okay, cool.
So one thing that would be nice is to take all of our weather client specific code and move it out of this file. I'm going to first clean things up by getting rid of this commented out code. And then all of this code we want to move out to client related files. What we can do is create a new file. And this will be a Swift file called weather client interface, because I want the contents of this file to just be the interface code that we have right here. And I also want it to contain any models that the interface needs to know about. And to get access to the date and publishers, we need to remember to import foundation and combine. Oh, and we also want to import core location. And this is the file where we can put in all of the documentation for how to use the client, maybe saying that this is a client for accessing weather data for locations. And we could even maybe document each of the endpoints. This is where users of the client can go to see what is available to them. I also like creating a separate file for the live interface of the weather client. And here we can just take this live client and paste it in. And we can even move that weather.json decoder into that file, and it can even remain private because we don't access it anywhere else in our module. And so it's nice that we're able to remove even more clutter from the main view Swift file, which is nice. Finally, it's nice to create a third file just for the mocks. And here we can take this one last extension and paste it in, and everything should still build. Now when we hop back over to our content view, we have something that is a lot more succinct. It just has the view model, the view, and some previews. So this separation is what we would consider to be maybe the bare minimum of how we should organize our dependencies. But we can take it even further if you have an appetite for it. And this will allow us to even better carve out a space for our dependencies to be truly separate. What we can do is we can create a whole new Swift package that houses just the weather client code, which will make it very explicit where and how our application depends on the client, and will enforce that the weather client code never incorrectly accesses anything from the main application target, since it will live in a completely different module. So to create a package, we can go to File, New, Swift Package, and we can add it to our current project, and we'll call this weather client. And over here, we have our new package for the weather client. And in the sources directory, we have a weather client module. And what we can do is we can take our weather client files, drag them over, and get rid of this file. And if we switch over to build the weather client, we'll see that it fails. And that's because combine is only available in iOS 13 or newer. In order to limit what our package's platforms are, we can define the platform to require iOS version 13. I'm also going to clean up this file a bit. And when we try to build our package, it succeeds. All right, now that the package is building, what we can do is we can go over to our app target and make sure that it links with the weather client. And now, if we hop back over to our app target and try to build, we'll get a few errors. One is that we are referring to weather client, but it seems to be undeclared, and that's because we need to import the weather client. And now the problem is, even though we're importing the weather client, all of its types are still internal. So what we can do is we can hop over to the interface and mark things public. We'll make the interface struct public, we'll make each of its properties public, we'll make the weather response public. And then we will also make all of our static instances public, including the live one, and all of our mocks. All right, and now it's building. Right, so everything builds, and it should work exactly the same as before, but something really great has happened. We now have compile time proof that our other applications that we might write, and this allows us to adopt all those new fancy iOS features faster and with a lot less complexity. So
Interface of how one interacts with the client abstractly, as well as the actual live and you would have to compile all that stuff just to get your little live client ready. All the while, the interface compiles like instantly. So although it's nice that the dependencies can be built in parallel, if the dependency itself takes a long time to load, to build, live implementation of this dependency took a very long time to compile. And I'm going to do that by going to the live.swift file, and I'm going to paste in some code that is going to really tax the Swift compiler. These expressions take a while to compile due to type inference and overloaded operators and expressible by literal protocols. All that stuff together makes these few lines explode in possibilities that the compiler has to figure out. To see that, I can just switch over to the weather client and try building, and we'll see that it is going to hang here for a while. I think this will take about a minute. So I'm going to stop it and not wait for it to compile. And this may seem contrived, but this is a real problem that manifests itself in real code bases, and we've personally seen it happen many times with many teams. Heavy dependencies start to slow down compiling the app, but we can fix this by separating the lightweight stuff, such as the interface and the models, from the heavyweight stuff, such as the live implementation. So what we're going to do is create yet another library, and this time it will house just the live implementation of the weather client. Luckily, we don't need to create a whole new package because a single SPM package can hold as many libraries as we want. All we have to do is hop over to package.swift and say that we want a new library, which I'll just copy and paste this, and it will be called weather client live. And then I'll copy paste this target to say that we will have a target for weather client live. And it will pick up a dependency that will be weather client. That way it can provide the live implementation of the interface struct in this module. Next, we need to create a directory for weather client live, and we can just drag and drop weather client live into here. And then in order to get access to weather client from weather client live, we have to import weather client. And now we should have a new target here for weather client live. If we try to build weather client live, we get a compiler error, and that's just because the initializer of weather client is internal. So we can just hop over to the interface, and we will have Xcode generate the memberwise initializer. All right, and so it gets most of it correct, but well, this one, it's marked as internal, but we want it public. Also, all these functions need to be escaping so that we can capture them as instance variables. And after those few changes, and I like to put the initializer after, I think we can get just the weather client building, but then switching over to the weather client, it looks like it's maybe happy with this now, but it is still taking a long time to compile, and that's just because of all this stuff down here. So I'm going to stop this. So we've now separated the lightweight interface stuff, the stuff that just holds the struct client and all the models necessary for the weather client to do its job in this module. And we've done all the heavyweight stuff, the live thing that actually does URL session stuff and could be depending on all types of other libraries in this module. And we're simulating the idea of a heavy compilation by putting in this code that causes the compiler to hang for about a minute until it finishes compiling. We can also clean up some of the names here, because now that we've moved this into a proper weather client module, maybe we could just name this file here interface, this mocks, and this live. All right, and so now this reads really nicely. We can see we've got our interface and mocks in this module. This compiles instantly. We've got our live weather client here, and that takes about a minute to compile. Now over in the app target, we're probably not yet building. All right, let's try it. And yet we're not. And that's because we don't have access to the live client right now. So this is only an error in the app view model. If we go down to the Swift UI preview, we're not referencing any live weather client information down here. So all this compiles just fine. We're only using mocks, and we have full access to that thanks to the weather client module. However, the app view model says that we need to pass it a weather client, and by default, we'll give it the live one. That was nice to get us started, but it's not so nice now. And in fact, we don't want the app view model to even know about a live client, because eventually we would love if we could build the app view model without needing to build all the heavyweight live stuff. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and get rid of that default, which means that now over in the scene delegate, we have to be very explicit here. And this is where we actually do want the live client, all right? Because the scene delegate is the thing that actually kicks off the application. It's the thing that needs to build absolutely everything no matter what. You'll never get around building all your dependencies when you need to build a scene delegate. That is just the moment that you should be really building Alamo Fire and Starscream and all that stuff, all right? So we would like to use the live client here, but we don't have access to it. So what we need to do is import weather client live. And in order to get access to this, we also need to say that the application is going to have a dependency on the live weather client. All right, and now when we build, well, it's hanging because it's building a live client, but let's go ahead and wait for this one to build. And I'm gonna even just open up my clock here so that we can count down the time, and it's gonna take about a minute. So let's wait this out. Okay, all right, that was pretty much exactly 1 minute. And I don't know about you, but I don't want to ever have to build that live dependency again. That was pretty annoying to have to wait an entire minute before our project built and we could actually run it. And so now everything is building, but we haven't really accomplished anything because the app is importing both the weather client and the weather client live modules, even though the majority of the code only needs access to the interface. The only file that needs access to the live is this one single file, just the scene delegate, but everything in the content view, this only needs the weather client interface, which is the thing that compiles super quickly. And so what we should be able to do is have it so that we can build this core feature instantaneously, since it only depends on this, and only at the moment that we need to actually build the entire application, including the scene delegate, should we ever incur the cost of building the live client. And in order to do this, we need to create yet another module, and I'm sure you're probably getting a little sick of creating these modules, but it is incredibly powerful to be able to do this. So let's keep going with it. This time the module will hold the functionality of the core weather feature that is separate from the app's entry point. So we should be able to build the weather feature without needing to build any of this stuff, because this stuff is only necessary to actually launch something in the simulator. However, due to a bug in Xcode, we can't create this module via Swift Package Manager because it seems that Swift UI previews just don't work in packages when that package has dependencies. Hopefully that'll be fixed someday, but luckily we can work around this by just creating a standard framework target in Xcode. So what we do instead of creating a new SVM package is just do the more classic thing of going in here and creating a framework that we will call the weather feature. All right, and it'll be added to the design dependencies project, and we can hit finish. And now we have a new target here, the weather feature, and we have new directory here, weather feature. And we'd like to move the content view down to the weather feature, because we would love if everything in here builds super quickly while everything in the main app target builds slowly because it needs to build actual live dependencies. And if we try to build this, all right, it fails because I think we need to connect some of these dependencies. So what we need to do is say that this feature is linked with the weather client and only the weather client. In particular, we are not going to link with the live client. And so now when we build, it succeeds. But even better, I'm going to do a clean and a build, and it happens pretty much immediately. It's not that the application builds immediately. We would hope that our preview also builds immediately. So I'm going to resume the preview, all right, and we see we're building stuff. Strangely, it's saying that it's building weather client live. And that's strange because we have no dependency whatsoever on weather client live. This seems to be a bug in Xcode that the Swift UI previews will just try to build everything in here, even though the only thing we want to build is the weather feature for the preview. It turns out that this was fixed in the new Xcode 12 beta, so this will soon be fixed. And let's just switch over to the beta so that we can see what this looks like. Okay, I am now in the Xcode 12 beta, and I'm opening up the project. Everything is the exact same it was over in Xcode 11, except now when I try to run this preview, it will no longer try to build the live weather client. It'll just build only what it needs for the weather feature and for this preview. All right, and there it is. So we are able to clean this target, build it super quickly, and run its preview super quickly, even though if we were trying to run the application, it would take over a minute to build. So let's do that. Let's switch over to the design dependencies application, and let's try to build it. Well, it fails. All right, and this is a strange error. Something about what we've done is making it seem like we are linking this library multiple times, causing a duplication of code. The problem is that weather client and weather client live are static, and weather client live includes weather client inside it, so we can't link to both of them from the same app target. To get around this, all we have to do is tell the weather client package that both of these libraries are dynamic. And so we'll make the weather client dynamic, and we'll make the weather client live dynamic. But things aren't going to build just yet. We still have the same error, and what is happening is that we in the app target are importing both the weather client live and the weather client, even though weather client live contains this weather client. So I think we need to remove this weather client. And so now when I build, we're going to get errors that it can't find these things, but that's just because what we need to do is import the weather feature, which has all this functionality, and we got to make that functionality public. So I'll make the app view model public, I'll make its initializer public, I'll make the content view public, and the body, and this initializer. And now when we build the app, it looks like everything is compiling. We're not getting compile errors, but we are stuck in this long compilation time again. And that's because we did a clean, and that completely cleaned out all build artifacts, which means we've lost the previous compilation of our live client. And so we're doing it all over again. And that kind of just shows how frail it is to compile these large dependencies. Something as simple and innocent as just cleaning some of our build artifacts causes us to go through this whole process all over again. But I want to run this application in the simulator just to make sure that everything still works the same. So let's wait this one out. We'll speed it up so that our viewers don't have to wait, but let's just get through it. Okay, and so it built, all right, and we're launching the simulator. Okay, and finally we got the simulator up and it showed us our results. That took a very long time. It would be very painful if every time we switched branches or merged in the main branch, we had to go through this whole process again. Because again, let's compare it to if we were to switch over to the weather feature, did a clean, did a build, and ran our preview. And that was very fast. It could be measured in just a few seconds. And so the full application builds a little bit slowly, and the weather feature framework builds instantly. And so that means we can iterate rapidly on the weather feature, all without ever building any of the live dependencies. And all the little weirdness we came across with the SPM stuff, like the fact that we couldn't use SPM for the weather feature, and the fact that we had that duplicate code symbol stuff, and all that stuff is a bit of a pain, but you learn the quirks, and Xcode, the beta actually has gotten quite a bit better from Xcode 11, and so hopefully it'll only get better from here. And so we do think it's absolutely worth working through those SPM quirks in order to totally modularize, because we've done something kind of amazing here. And I think we should kind of stop to appreciate what we've done, because we're getting a ton of benefits all at once just by